Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Today is a very, very special show. I had the privilege of meeting these two people quite recently, and they are here on the show to share with you a book that everybody needs to know about. Si Carlene Sobrino Bonnivier at si Gregory Villanueva po, two of the editors of Filipinotown Voices from Los Angeles. They will talk about growing up in Los Angeles, historic Filipinotown, and about the community-based activism that brought the anthology to life and led to the Up Against the Wall Readers Theater. Ladies and gentlemen, Carlene and Greg.
Hi there, hi there, hi there.
Hello, thank you for making it to Kababayan Today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Okay, so when I first met you at a reading in historic Filipinotown, it was interesting to me how passionate both of you were talking about growing up in historic Filipinotown. For the people that don't know where this is, share with us where this is in Los Angeles. Greg?
Filipinotown is now historic Filipinotown, but when it originated back in the 30s and 40s, it extended all the way to Main Street, where Little Tokyo is now. It's called Little Manila. Currently, it goes out to past Alvarado to Hoover, and it goes from the freeway to Beverly Boulevard. That's historic Filipinotown, which begins at Glendale. That's the area, but the impact area is much larger than that.
Both of you grew up in this area. Let's talk about growing up in Filipinotown. Carlene?
Well, we were just talking about this morning how Filipinotown was its own community, not just the historic Filipinotown, but Filipinotown, wherever you were and whoever you were with and who was living there, that was your community. We didn't have any cousins. I don't know anyone who had a cousin. Maybe in the Philippines, maybe in Louisiana, maybe in Mexico, but in our neighborhood, we were our family. And that was extremely important because we needed each other. It was very tight, very close. Sometimes we fought, but you could count on each other. You didn't have a babysitter, or you're going to be late, or you got double time if you worked Saturday and Sunday. You could run to somebody. Sometimes my mother left me at the beauty shop, which was African American, and they sometimes did my hair funny. But they liked to play with me. I mean, it was just a great neighborhood.
So, first of all, people will say, Carlene, Filipina, green eyes.
I know.
Your
What
mother
happened?
is Filipina.
Well, see, in the 1940s, Filipinos were actually only allowed to live certain places. And one of the places you were allowed to live was Bunker Hill, which is where we started, because my white father died 2 weeks before I was born. Looking like this, I grew up Filipino in Filipinotown with my Filipino mother and really the LA culture, whatever it is, kind of quirky and interesting.
What you didn't mention is that you were conceived in the Philippines.
That's right.
Yes, in Baguio, from
Yes.
what I know.
Yes. So I started in Baguio. So then I immigrated
In the womb.
To Los Angeles a month after the boat docked. Here I am.
Okay, so it's very interesting to me that both of you were born here, grew up here, and yet you really identify with being Filipino. Let's talk about that, the continual search to be Filipino. Greg?
Carlene and I met in first grade at Our Lady Loretto Grammar School. And my family wasn't really.
Your family wasn't really?
It wasn't a family. Yeah. Carlene mentioned about having no cousins. I think my memory of family was of others who may have had family. I remember shadowy figures who would come to play poker on Baudry at Temple. But this thing about not having cousins was very real. I think I probably saw some cousin when I was 6 or 7. The Filipino-ness was almost isolated. It was just a word. It was my dad, who happened to be darker than most. I didn't understand anything about Filipinos until I went to visit another classmate of ours at Loretto, Ron Bautista, who died recently, a former Marine, a wonderful guy. He had a mother and father both Filipino. My mother, in terms of family, my mother was Spanish-Mexican, father Filipino. She was literally ostracized from her family for connecting with my dad. And so it wasn't until years later that I began to find some idea of what Filipino-ness was. I remember wearing for me, please excuse me, the funny shirts to do some dances. I didn't know anything about the language. My dad wanted me to make sure that I didn't have any issues with the language.
This seems to be the case with a lot of Filipino parents back in the day.
Yeah.
That Tagalog was not encouraged, the language was not encouraged, be American.
Yes.
Was this the same in your case?
Yeah, it didn't go any further than that. It was just a statement. In those days, parents were, or at least my father, was very patriarchal. And if he said something, that's the way it was.
That's the way it was, and that's the way it is for a lot of Filipino families.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited for today because we have an exclusive reading of this book. The editors themselves have prepared something for all of you Kababayan viewers. When we return, we will do an exclusive reading of Filipinotown Voices from Los Angeles with Greg and Carlene. We'll be right back on Kababayan Today.